Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here, and I have been missing for a little while. So, August, I ended up getting quite sick. I think they were COVID like symptoms, but I had a terrible cough that lasted almost 6 weeks. So it was a pretty extended amount of time to be sick, and I just have coughing fits, so it wasn't easy to make videos. It kicked in a little bit of an autoimmune response, so I struggled a little bit with fatigue, but I'm back. It's October, so I took 2 whole months for recovery. All's good. I'm feeling good. So today I want to talk about negotiation. What I want to talk about are the elements of good negotiation and how you want to use the frameworks that I've been working on to your advantage, and particularly how we're going to create negotiation habits so that you start getting used to asking for something in return. And this has to do with your professional development, your career development, and project development if that's what you're working on. For those of you who have not watched my videos before, I'm Christina Holloway. I am an executive coach. I have 20 years experience working in major Fortune 500 businesses, and I coach people at all levels of the organization, from management all the way to the top at the CEO level. And I'm here today, or on this channel, to just share some wisdom with you in hopes that this helps you create the career and the professional development that you want and you deserve. All right, so let's get started. The reason I'm bringing up this topic is because last week I had two people back to back tell me, can you help me negotiate better for myself? I need to ask for my worth. And this had to do more with how do you speak up for yourself when there's a project or you have a heavy workload or someone's asking a lot of you. So that's the concept or the perspective by which we're going to create a negotiation framework. And here's how it looks. You could be faced with any kind of conversation and somebody will tell you, I need you to do this. There's three things we want to do. We want to anchor the conversation, we want to pivot the topic, and then we want to close strong. Those are the three elements in the framework about how we're going to position ourselves when we need to negotiate. We also are going to lean into influence. I talk a lot about Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. I am going to link it below so that you can just have easy access to it. Now, when we talk about influence, we're actually asking the person next to us or in front of us who's asking something of us, how can I negotiate, and to what degree can I create impact or benefit for you while you're giving something back for me as well? This has a little bit to do with the Pareto effect, and the Pareto effect is that we create win-win situations. I give enough for them so that they have a win, and they give enough for me so that I have a win. We've reached a mutual point of negotiation where we both feel satisfied. It's easier to create influence when you're working from that perspective versus I have to win at all costs. I have to have them give something up at all costs. I don't feel like a negotiation goes well unless somebody else loses. This doesn't work if we're trying to build relationships, if we're trying to build trust, and especially if we're building our career. Relationships, trust, and influence are going to be the critically most important elements of developing a negotiation strategy or persona. So let's say somebody is asking you for something. So it's about asking you to show up and lead a project that you've never led before, and you feel like you're going to be vulnerable in this position. That means you do get to go back and tell them, I will agree to do this if I can have some reassurances. That sentence alone is positioning you for negotiation. And that's why what I'm suggesting is start small. Start with smaller things. Get in the habit of constantly asking for something in return. So small, low-hanging fruit is if your boss says, can you get this to me Thursday? I will, if I can drop off one of the other deliverables because I'm running into tight deadlines this week. Can you lead the call? I won't be on the meeting. I will. If I can leave early, I have a doctor's appointment. I'm trying to get out 30 minutes early. Small asks, small ways to say, yes, I can, and yes, and. Here's where that starts to work to your favor. Eventually, you start building up a habit, and you don't need to use it every time. But those moments where you know that somebody's asking more of you and you've given a lot, you do get to turn back and say, you've asked for a lot from me. You're asking for one more thing. I'm just going to put it out here that I'll do it as long as I can create some sort of concession somewhere else, because my workload is looking like it's quite big. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel asking for something in return. Another example was when I had been contracting. I worked as a vendor for a big company for a long time, and my prices were the same for years, 5 years, I think. And I said to one of my colleagues, I think I'm going to go ask for more money. I'm going to increase my rates. And I'll never forget that this woman came back and told me, don't do that. They'll fire you. Don't ask for more. And my first response was, well, all they have to do is tell me, no, we can't afford it. There's no reason for them to get rid of me. But what I found fascinating was how much she saw it as an end game. There was nothing left. If you ask for it, they'll find a reason to say, oh, we don't need you anymore. She didn't consider the fact that they might say, well, no, or let's wait 6 months, or we don't have the budget for it. Sorry. That's just what negotiation is. So for her, she really didn't see negotiation as a possibility. And I found that astounding and quite sad. I was very surprised that somebody had that attitude at work. I did ask for more money, and I did get more money. And the way I asked was really, I haven't raised my prices, and I'd like to have a bump in the rate. And they said, sure, that fits our budget, and we're okay with it. That's all it was, simple. But there's a moment where you do get to say to yourself, I want to ask for more. I want to speak to my value, and I want to be able to just speak up for myself, because the entire purpose of negotiation is to be able to speak up for yourself and set boundaries around what you will and will not tolerate, or what you will and will not handle based on your workload. This is about reducing stress and overwhelm. Now, when we talk about the framework, anchor, pivot, and close, that was one of the conversations I had with somebody who had to talk about an exit agreement. She was talking about an exit agreement. And so she was leaving the company, and they were talking about how they were going to create a package for her because they had requested that they didn't need her services anymore, but they offered her an exit package. So in those terms, what we did was come up with a way for her to create the conversation and anchor it. So I said, go for the big thing first. Tell them that you want to talk to them and that you had expected they were going to bring up this package first, because that's creating the sense of what the meeting and the conversation is going to be. So when she created this meeting, when she set up this meeting, they got on the phone, they talked about small talk, and then she said, this is great. The purpose of the meeting is for us to discuss the package, and these are the areas I want to talk about, which was about her money. Then they knew exactly what they would be discussing, and it was the first thing. The big one is the first thing. So they talked back and forth, and they discussed exactly what they were going to offer her. And she kept it very professional, saying, well, you did offer to have this conversation. I did take time to think about it. This is my ask. And so they discussed that part. Now, if they were going to start moving into a different position or a different topic, she was already on top of it with her pivot. And her pivot was, now that we've covered that, now is the big stuff. Let's talk about some of the small stuff. But to them, it wasn't small stuff. She framed it that way. So we already talked about my exit package and how much money I'm going to get, and do I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement or a non-compete agreement? And her terms were, I'm not signing either of those things. You're the ones who asked me to leave, and I'm not going to limit myself to the work that I have, to any kind of new job position. All right. So then the next part was she pivoted into saying, well, now that that's settled, I'd like to talk about, my timeline. So that less important, but now she's driving the conversation and she's moved into the next topic. Oh, the timeline for her to roll off. She's now setting parameters around, I'm going to need an extra month, because what we were saying was they were only going to pay her for the next 2 months. She really needed 2.5 months to end out the quarter. So I said, go ahead and ask for the extra 2 weeks. Again, it looks like low-hanging fruit, but to her, the compensation would have made a difference for her. They agreed. And then they got into the end of the conversation where she had made her asks, big request first, low hanging fruit second, and then the close, which was about vacation time, just getting compensated for vacation time, which was really small. That's not a big deal. And she said, oh, yeah. And by the way, there's a couple of extra days on vacation time. That's not going to be a big deal for you to cash out on that, right? It's really not that much money, but it'll be good for us to just make a clean break. And they were like, sure. So that's the way the conversation goes. You start with what's big when you're making your own ask, and you start negotiating when somebody has brought this forward to you. Here's what we want you to do. Here's what we're proposing for you. Here's the big thing that we're going to have a call about. And then you can tell them, I'm going to take time to think about it. And then you're going to come up with your anchor, your pivot, and then your close. Your anchor is going to be the biggest thing that you want to anchor the conversation on. Your pivot is going to be, oh, here's some extra stuff that I thought I'll just throw into this meeting. And your close is, now that we've really settled all of that, how about this extra low, really small stuff that should be inconsequential to you, but it matters to me. So that's the framework. And that's kind of the conversation that the last person I talked to was having about her exit package. Now, that could be applied to anything. I had another person, because I talked to 2 people last week, the other person that I spoke with was trying to negotiate work projects. So he really wanted to get in front of new projects with new stakeholders, and it was important to him to speak up for himself. His boss was coming to him, actually a new boss, and was saying to him, here's where I'd like to put you on some projects. That person didn't know him very well. That person didn't know what he had been working on up to that point. And that person was giving him small piddly stuff. So when they asked him, here's what we'd like to, they presented everything to him, reciprocity and influence was in play. That meant, I'll do it for you if you do this for me, reciprocity. And also, influence was in play because the other part of it was, how do I do an ask back? You asked me, I'm going to ask back. So instead of just saying yes or no, because you want to keep conversation open, and I built up this habit and I use it a lot, which is if somebody makes a big request for me, the next answer I give them is a question. I'm not giving them a yes or no right away. I'm going to need more information. What's the scope of this project? I'm going to need additional background. Who am I going to be working with? What am I going to be doing? Who am I going to be answering to? How does this project impact my career development? Where am I going next? If I finish this project, what are you going to give me next? And you can also tell them, this seems beneath me at my level. If I'm a senior manager, why are you giving me something so small or so simple? It seems like something somebody else could do. What am I missing here? These are all really great questions. They divert away from the simple ask, and they require more information before you commit to it. And it plays into influence, which is, okay, these are my questions. So if one of your questions is, what do I get from out of this doing a simple project? Am I getting in front of new people? Am I going to get visibility on a bigger project? Am I going to get promised the next big project if I do this one? What do I get back? What's my ask back? And those questions anchor the conversation as to this person understanding when they assign something to you or they propose something to you, that you're asking how it's going to position you strongly for your own benefit. Now, I know we can say, oh, that's just selfish. However, this is a game of chess, and we're not just taking things for the sake of taking them. We're asking, to what degree is this going to benefit me in the long run? Because I'm here to develop my career. I'm here to understand my value and where I contribute to the company. And I'm here to figure out where I'm going next, right? So, and you keep that inside if you have to. That may not be stuff that you need to tell your boss or whoever the stakeholder is who brought that to you, but those are the statements, the questions, the elements by which you want to start having those conversations. All right, so let's review. We're talking about negotiation. And when we talk about negotiation, we're talking about building a habit. And when we build a habit, we want to create a framework around how we're going to create negotiation opportunity for low-hanging fruit, those smaller things that we want. That means we create an ask back. We don't have to say yes or no right away. and we consider it and come back with thoughtful questions. When somebody proposes something to you, like a big opportunity, you want to use the framework, which is anchor, pivot, and then close, which means you have more control over the conversation and you're using your influence and reciprocity as a way to create trust and allow that person to give you something in return for what you're going to give them. And that's the Pareto effect. So you can see how all of this plays together, right? All right, so that's it for this video on how to negotiate or how to build a negotiation habit professionally in your career development. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like these videos and you'd like to see more, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and definitely hit the notification bell so you never miss a video from me. Thank you for watching. It's good to be back, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.